I was invited by the Lawrence Police Department to participate in to go out to the establishments at closing hour on Friday evening. And part of the reason why I wanted to do this was so I can get a better understanding as to the kinds of stresses that the police departments face when closing hours come at Fridays and Saturday nights specifically. Friday night, frankly, was Good Friday evening, and that evening, according to the police department, was not a very busy evening. But even with that not being a very busy evening, what I found out was that there was a call for, there was a gun that was spotted in the Merrimack Courts project that evening. So all the police and the cruiser that I was in as well raced down to the Merrimack Courts projects to try to go up into the area to find out where this individual was with the gun. Come to find out, there was many police cruisers there. Many, I think most, if not all, the police officers were there. Luckily, I think that there was misinformation from the informant. It was simply a knife, but not a gun. But what happened was that it took away the resources. And the resources are important, Council President, because about a month and a half ago in my district, at the intersection of Pierre Marquette and McKinley, there was a shooting that took place that night. And it happened on a Saturday night. And it happened when the bars closed, and there was an underage party in a home that was not furbished, and the underage individual had his friends over. And what happened that evening was that his friends came by, but when the bars closed, they found out about this underage party, and many people from the local bars went over because they found out about it through Facebook or wherever they found out about it, and went down to this bar. When I went down to this residence. And what happened there was that this individual decided, a bunch of individuals crashed the party. And the child, the minor of the homeowner who was there, shouldn't be there doing this, frankly, tried to get these individuals out and couldn't, and a fight ensued. It took a while for the police department to show up, but when they did show up, they dispersed the group. Well, somebody came back, this time with the gun, and started shooting. 5 rounds were shot. And it took a while for the police again to come by. When the residents formed and asked, why did it take so long for the police department to come by? It was that evening. It was that evening that they had an amazingly busy evening, closing down bars in the city. Because when the bars close at 2 o'clock in the morning in the city of Lawrence, I'm told there's 10,000 people all flushing in, having just had a night, obviously reveling, probably had a few drinks. And what's happening is that there's a lot of resources that are coming from the police department to actually having to manage that. So what I decided to do is to see firsthand what happened. It was a quiet night. The bars at that evening, because it was quiet, it was fairly orderly, but I saw in one instance how resources can be deployed in a very fast manner because things happen around the city. And I'm also know that how things cannot get around because there are instances and fights and things that are happening in the downtown area. So when I asked the police department for some recommendations on what it is to make their job easier, what is it to make our citizens safer, what is it when I don't get phone calls from people in my district saying, where's the police department? Oh, they had to deal with some bar issues because they was out late that evening. That's unacceptable, Council President, because when a fight, something happens, people in my district, I would imagine all of our districts, call the police department. We want to see responses. We don't want to see our resources tied up in this way. So when I asked the police department to give us recommendations as to what it is that would make their job easier, make it more manageable, and these are the things they're telling us that we could use to make their job, when they're on the front lines, when their guns are drawn going up to the Merrimack Courts projects, I think we need to listen. So, Council President, I'm recommending that I'm recommending that we need to have an ordinance. We do, because what we don't need is for things to be unpermitted in the city. But we need to have an ordinance, Council President, that really reflects what the police department needs to make our city safe. While also, and they're not saying no to economic development. They're not saying no that we can't have dinner or drinks or have outdoor cafes. They're not saying no to that. This stuff can happen. We can still have these things happen. But let's listen to what they have to say as we try to improve upon and make our city safer. So I'm hoping that the authors of the amendment would reflect upon this, revisit these things that are going to make their job, the men in blue and women in blue, jobs easier, make it happen, and then I'll support it. I will not support it, though, if we're going to be doing this only halfway.